Why, hi there. I'm Ron Chucky, and you can see I'm joined by a cast of thousands today on the DoDCast Postgame show as we talk about Roger Federer's dominance today at Wimbledon. No, we're not talking about that. Well, we probably could, but what a day for the Nats. They finally get their bullpen help that they so desperately need. You're supposed to laugh at the jokes, guys. As they pick up Ryan Madsen and Sean Doolittle for Blake Trinan and two prospects. We'll talk a lot about that in the next little while. And they beat the Cincinnati Reds 14-4 in a game that Tanner Roark needed to pitch at least average in, and he did that in spades. So let's talk about the trade. I don't really care which one of you starts. What do you guys think?
Well, let Drew go first because Drew wrote up the great write-up on the trade for us.
I love the trade. I think the Nationals did a great job going out and getting a couple relievers. I think the A's also did a great job of getting Blake Trinan, who's a big league ready reliever right now, as well as a few prospects. So I thought it was a good trade all around. I guess we'll see in a few years how it turns out with the prospects that the Nats gave up. But I think at least right now the Nats may have won this one.
Ricky?
Yeah, I think that the Nationals won this one. You're talking about giving up two players that in Sheldon Noisy and Jesus Luzardo that are not going to be ready for 3-4 years, if that. So to give up players you're not going to need right away, and let's be honest, Blake Trinan never had a role here, and I'm not quite sure he has a role in Oakland right now because there's so many guys mixed up in that role. So to not give up any of the top four, to not give up Stevenson, and to get not Doolittle, and Ryan Madsen, who has NL East experience, who has postseason experience and championship experience, is an added bonus. So I think Mike Rizzo, considering who's not available, pulled off another good one.
Yeah, I think potentially it's a very good deal for both sides. Madsen was part of that monster bullpen that won the World Series for the Kansas City Royals 2 years ago. And Doolittle, the year that he closed for Oakland, went to the All-Star game because of that. So, I think that they finally have some parts and pieces and can assign some people some roles. I think we saw that the last couple of days with Eddie Romero pitching the seventh inning regardless of the score. We can talk in a bit about how they're going to use these pitchers, but I really think that a lot of the potential problems have been solved until, of course, they're not. But, they went out and made the effort. They took on $4.5 million in additional payroll this year. We'll know tomorrow once Cots Baseball's contracts gets everything squared away, just how far over the luxury tax that they are, or competitive balance tax. And they signed Doolittle, they had Doolittle under control for possibly 4 years after this one. Or 3 years after this one. So they may have fixed their closer problem for a long time.
Well, the options are going to be tough because you have Doolittle's injury history that does play a factor. I don't know if you pick up both of those options, but at the very least for 2 years, and while you can maybe groom Coda Glover along and not speed up his development process as a closer, I think that's an added bonus. And you're right, to give them their credit, they are going to go over the tax, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, rather that they're more worried about money than giving up top prospects, and that should be rewarded.
All right, there's nothing in the chat, so let's go through the actual game totals now. Washington 14-4. They're now 55-36. 14 runs, 17 hits, and 3 errors. Really only 2 because of that very strange play in the third inning in which Jose Lobaton caught strike 3 and threw to the wrong base because someone thought, the first base ump thought that the ball was tipped. And Homer Bailey, of all people, reached first. If that mattered, we'd be talking a lot about that, but it doesn't. 4 runs, 7 hits, and an error for Cincinnati. They dropped to 39-52. They've dropped the first 3 games of this series. Drew will be with you for the series finale tomorrow. Cincinnati just looks absolutely horrific. Roark, 7-6 now on the year. Homer Bailey, 2-3. And I know you guys did not catch much of this game, but this is exactly what Tanner Roark needed to do, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Roark, he's struggled a lot this year, but now with Ross's injury, I think Roark is more important now than maybe he ever has been. And the fact that he was able to go out there and just finally put together a solid start. He looked all right in the relief outing against Atlanta last weekend, and then he looked good today. So hopefully he can keep it going and pitch well throughout the second half and into the postseason.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ricky.
What Roark and whoever takes that fifth starter spot needs to do is just pitch to the scoreboard. I mean, when you go out and you get an early 3-4-0 lead, don't worry about trying to hit the corner or trying to strike out 10. Roark's not that kind of pitcher. Just go out there, pitch to contact, get the ground ball outs, because let's be honest, Gio has kind of taken the spot from Roark as that third reliable starter. So it's anything you can get from Tanner you're happy with.
Well, I think especially with this start, I mean, he pitched well in his relief stint. There were some runs there that were kind of his fault, but he pitched well in that relief stint. So I think coming into today, it was a case of, look, just show us what you have. I think most of his problems are kind of between the ears, but I think, because he can go out there and give you 5 innings of tremendous baseball sandwiched around 1 inning that makes you want to pull your hair out. And that was not the case today. 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, none of them earned. He walked 3, and that was really okay. And he struck out 5, but he went, I believe, 3 or 4 innings between strikeouts. 101 pitches and 65 strikes. And, he lowered the ERA to 4.98. But the key for Roark going forward, as you guys said, just find some consistency. If you're going to be the 4th starter, you take those numbers and run. There wasn't anything today that 5th inning he kind of struggled in a little bit. But there really wasn't anything today that made you went, uh-oh, I'm seeing the things from before. Lots of off-speed stuff, but he finally, towards the end, started working those fastballs in for swing and miss strikes and looked like the Tanner Roark of last year.
It's got to be the mental break, too. I mean, I think when you get as many days off as Tanner Roark did during the break, it's got to be a nice reset moment. Think about what was working. I mean, we've seen the impact Matt Wieters has had on Gio. I'm sure Wieters can have the same impact on Roark, even though Lobaton was the catcher today. So they'll at least get to reset and be a tougher test next time out. I think he faces Arizona over the weekend, who's struggling, but that's a much better lineup. Even though Cincinnati's lineup isn't bad.
So the rest of the pitching lines today, Romero gets the 7th inning. And, guys, are we thinking that's going to be the case the rest of the year? Romero is their primary 7th inning guy?
I would think so.
I would agree, because Ryan Madsen, you look at his 8th inning numbers this year, teams are hitting 159 against Madsen in the 8th. So I would think he's your guy in that spot.
Romero, 1 inning, 2 hits, a run it was earned. He gave up the walk, but struck out 2, 26 pitches for 17 strikes. Joe Blanton worked around a leadoff hit and struck out the side. 21 pitches for 14 strikes, and Trevor Gott with a much better performance this afternoon than last night, an inning, a walk, and a strikeout, and he lowered his ERA, guys, to 30. I imagine that Adams and Gott will be the ones. Gott must have some options left, doesn't he?
I think he has 1. It's either 1 or 2.
Okay. And, of course, the other news today, Joe Ross will undergo Tommy John surgery on Wednesday in Arlington, Texas. It's a complete tear. We're pretty much looking at he is out till the 2019 season.
Yeah, and the Nationals haven't officially announced it yet, but today Jorge Castillo was reporting that Edwin Jackson will most likely be the guy to get the start on Tuesday against the Angels.
All right. Now we have some activity in the chat. Al, Red Sox fan, says, hello. Hello, Al. Judo Joker wishes us hi. Kevin Wood, new name to the show. What about trading for Brandon Kinsler on the Twins? He has a 2.23 ERA and 23 saves this season so far. Twins are still in contention. I don't think they're going to be sellers at the break or sellers at the deadline. I also, guys, do you think that they're done making moves for bullpen, or do we see one more move?
Maybe an August move. Maybe remember last year Mark Zapchinski was acquired at the August deadline, but unless something goes wrong with an injury, it's tough to put too many prospects into relievers. I mean, Noisy and Luzardo are not the big 4, and either Stevenson or anybody you want to throw in there, but it's still a decent haul. That's 2 top 15 prospects. You're not going to really throw another. Kinsler is going to acquire big prospects even if he was available.
True?
Yeah, I think the fact that this trade was done a couple weeks before the deadline, it allows them to kind of try to slot everyone into their roles. And maybe if things still aren't working out, you might see them go out and get a reliever. But I don't think they would get a big name guy like Kinsler. Maybe just like kind of under the radar move, just a 6th inning reliever possibly.
Right. Judo Joker says that Nishak is for sale. Too expensive for the Nats now? I think we'd agree that would be the case, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Likely.
To outside observers, Judo continues, catchers are underappreciated. I'm glad Matt Wieters is getting credit from his battery mates. Considering that he started so late, didn't get much time in spring training to handle the staff, I think he's done a heck of a job this year. He really has handled those pitchers quite well.
But let's give credit to Jose Lobaton today. He hit a homer.
It was Wieters who delivered the foie, by the way. Just in case you're keeping track of that. That wasn't, I mean, they said on the StatCast that was 412. He put that on the second batter's eye. That really was 430, 440.
Yeah, that was out where Harper's homer was from the other day in his 2 home run game.
They said it was 412. It was further than that. Yep. Let's see, Al. If you weren't with us earlier, Ryan Manson and Sean Doolittle have been sent from Oakland to the Washington Nationals in exchange for Blake Trinan, Sheldon Noisy, and who's the name of the pitcher?
Jesus Luzardo.
All right. What are we losing? And what's the deal with Noisy? He's actually had some success. Tell us about the people that we're losing, Rick.
All right. Well, Noisy's a guy who had a good season at Hagerstown, which is the Nats low A affiliate. He can play some short. He can play some third. Has good power. Is one of their top RBI guys, but just got drafted last year, which is odd. The Nats have now traded 3 of their first 4 picks from last year's draft. So it kind of shows you how they kind of viewed who they were picking. Luzardo, I read a tweet that Billy Beane thinks he's like Gio Gonzalez. He has been throwing in the mid-90s since pitching in the Gulf Coast League. It's only 3 games because of Tommy John. So he's a work in progress, but he at least wasn't walking anybody when he did get starts there. So, again, you're losing 2 pretty good prospects. I mean, I saw MLB Pipeline had him in the top 15 of Oakland's system, and Oakland's system's pretty good. But, again, you keep Stevenson, you keep Fetty, you keep Robles, you keep Kieboom and Soto, who hopefully will be back soon. I don't think the Nats, considering what could have happened and considering all this talk about leverage, they might have found the right trade partner that didn't have any leverage at all in Billy Beane.
I had those 2 as 4th and 5th on my power ranking of achievable closers. And with the injury history that probably played into Washington's hands, I think we're all I'm going to ask around here. I was surprised that anyone from the Major League roster was traded. We'll miss Blake Trinan, but I was actually surprised that a major leaguer went in that trade. Were you guys?
Yeah, I was a little stunned to see a major leaguer in the trade. So, I mean, I don't know what their plan is because they're really not going to be in contention for a few more years. And Trinan is controllable. He hits arbitration next year, so he's got 3 years after this season. So maybe he sticks around for when they're in contention. But, yeah, I didn't expect to see a major leaguer in the trade.
Billy Beane did tell the media that 2 teams already had called him on Blake Trinan since acquiring him, and Oakland has said no to both of those teams. To be honest, I was surprised at first, but then thinking about it, they did need to get a reliever back because they lost 2 relievers in their bullpen. So Trinan, I think, considering with veterans like Casilla and Axford that are there, they do need a guy for the future. So, and again, Trinan never really established anything with the Nationals. He couldn't do the 9th inning, and then they put him in the 9th against the Cubs, and that was a disaster.
Oh my goodness!
He's a guy that needs a new place to pitch because he was a starter at one point with the Nats, went back to reliever, and then he's going different roles, and he just needs a new start, and maybe Oakland's the place for him.
I would agree with that. You hope that maybe taking some of the pressure off, he either pitches himself into shape or makes himself a trade target for next year for a contender. When you throw a sinker that hard, and when you are a walking double play machine with pitches at 97, 98 to back that up, you're going to be valuable to somebody. It didn't work here. It happens. if for whatever reason it just didn't work. Let me go real quickly through the offensive things for today. 3-hit day for Defoe, 3 for 5 with 3 runs scored. Daniel Murphy drives in 5 as it was his day to hit 2 home runs. He went 3 for 4. Anthony Rendon is really making, in my view, a case for MVP. He went 2 for 5 with a kaboom with 2 RBI. And Jose Lobaton went 1 for 5 with 2 RBI. Adam Lynn with 3 RBI today. Chris Heisey went 3 for 5 today. 3 doubles, Lynn, Heisey, and Harper. A home run machine. Murph with a 16th in the first off of Homer Bailey, and then a 3-run shot off of Bailey in the 5th. Lynn with a solo shot off of Hernandez, 2-run shot off of Hernandez in the 5th, and Rendon with a solo shot off of Drew Storen, which broke a lot of hearts on Twitter, guys. Let me tell you that. Just broken-hearted that Drew Storen gave up a home run. And when Lobaton hit the 2-run shot to center field, the tears on Twitter were just, I needed tissues after that. Surprisingly, they only went 5 for 12 with runners in scoring position and left on 7 today. But look, they scored 14. The lead was never in doubt, and the Nats offense is rolling in the net, and the Reds just look awful.
Yeah, the Reds got off.
Oh, go ahead, Drew.
The Reds got off to a good start earlier this year, and you had guys like Scooter Gennett. He had the 4-home-run game, and just since their good start, they've really started. They've begun to play how everyone expected them to play this year, and I like how the Nats have taken advantage of playing a weaker opponent, because sometimes it seems like the weaker opponents are the teams that give them trouble, and then they'll go and play like a Cubs or a Dodgers and play well then. So it's been good to see the Nationals really pounding the Reds while they have the opportunity to play a weaker opponent.
We've seen what rest has done for the Nationals coming out of the break. A team that looked tired in that Atlanta series, and they've come out looking refreshed. They've come out swinging the bats well. And the bench, you mentioned it, Ron. Defoe had 3 hits. Chris Heisey had 3 hits today. We never see that. The depth that they built on this team, when Worth comes back, when Taylor comes back, when Turner comes back, they're going to be guys that when this team has to, if and when this team has to make postseason roster decisions, they're going to make it tough, and that's a great thing.
Absolutely. Judo says, I saw a lot on Twitter about Oakland fans being disappointed. Others saying it was necessary to restock. Was this a good trade for both organizations? It was interesting to read the timeline, especially Susan Slusser, who is the great writer in the Oakland area. I believe that I think it's the San Francisco Chronicle that she writes for. Doolittle was beloved in the clubhouse. Will do wonders in the Washington community. Works a lot with veterans. I mean, those are the types. That's the type of presence that you cannot replace playing Moneyball. Just what he meant to that organization. He was a lifer with Oakland. This is a tremendous score for the Nats. I'm going to say that yes, this was a good trade for both organizations. It did not cost a lot for Washington to get there. I think the world of Blake Trinan from everything that I've read, and I'm happy that he gets a fresh start in a situation that will let him get his confidence back. It was clear that management did not have a lot of confidence in him here. Moving him, I think, was the best thing. Anyone?
Like you said, they really loved Doolittle in Oakland, and so I think that's part of why the Oakland fans have been so disappointed in this trade. So I'm really looking forward to having him in Washington for a few seasons. I know Rizzo, he always looks for not only guys who can perform well on the field, but guys who are good clubhouse guys. You don't want what happened with Papelbon back in 2015. So I think Doolittle is really a perfect acquisition for them.
And if Bean doesn't get top prospects for Sonny Gray, then I think you can look at this deal and be disappointed in it. I don't think the A's are done, so you have to kind of look at their whole package of prospects that they get on August 1st. But I think this is more of a win for the Nationals than it is for Oakland. I understand Oakland fans are upset because they just never seem to capitalize when they get the players that they get. I saw Slusser retweet something that Billy Bean said. Billy Bean was very candid saying we have to get these players signed when they come here. And it's the way their franchise is set up. And I think the Nationals won this way more than Oakland did until we see these prospects pan out, and that's not for 4 or 5 years.
Sonny Gray to me is the artisan hamburger you buy at McDonald's. shell out the $4.75 or $5, or probably more than that to get the good cheese sauce and mushrooms on the burgers, but you're going to feel just as rotten about it after. I mean, he'll probably get the team a wild card spot if necessary, but he is not the Maserati or the Five Guys that that teams need to. He's not the elite pitcher that teams will overspend for. Oakland's going to get a good haul with him. Hopefully all those puns made sense. All right. Elsewhere in playoff-related baseball teams in the division, Colorado beat the Mets today, 13-4. Steven Matz couldn't make it out of the first, right? It was 7-0 early on in that game. The Dodgers have beaten the Marlins 3-2. The Dodgers, I believe, have started to print playoff tickets already. Atlanta downs Arizona today, 7-1. So no one gains any ground in the National League East. Atlanta doesn't lose any. In fact, you know what, guys? Atlanta is now a 500 club. And as much as I just poo-pooed Sonny Gray, if Atlanta was able to land him with the way that Colorado and Arizona are starting to fall apart, yes, I think that, Atlanta and maybe the Mets, if they can get their act together, can reach that second wild card.
Mets not so much, but I think Atlanta is a team to keep an eye on. They have a huge series coming up with the Cubs beginning tomorrow night at home, and it's Lester against Tehran. So that's a huge match. If Atlanta can do something there against the Cubs, then you might see them bye.
Cubs, by the way, shut out Baltimore today, 8-0. Jose Quintana makes his debut with the Northsiders and strikes out 12. Gets run support and wonders where the hell that's been the last couple of years. Oh, man. Thanks, Baltimore, for the help with that, because the Cubs are the team that you do not want to see in the playoffs, I don't think. You want Milwaukee to win. Let's see. Other finals that involve playoff-bound teams. Houston beat Minnesota today 3-5. Games in progress. Philadelphia leads Milwaukee 5-2. How about that? Go Phils. And I believe that takes care of the division and playoff teams that we care about. All right, before I go through the minor league scores, where do you think will another trade happen, and what do you think they're trading for, if they do?
I don't think they're gonna make another trade, at least before the non-waiver trade deadline. I think maybe, like Ricky was saying, you might see an August trade similar to what they did last year with Zepchinski, but I'm not sure that they make another trade within the next couple weeks.
If they do, it depends, I guess, on what Edwin Jackson does Tuesday or what he does over the next couple of games, because that's really your placeholder until Eric Fetty is ready, whether that be a month from now, 5 weeks from now. That's really your only concern, because you're going to get Taylor back. And I guess maybe if Jason Worth continues to have setbacks, then you go out and look at another outfield type, maybe like a middle tier guy or something like that. But I think their big deals are done.
Yeah, I think if they make a move at this point, it's probably after the trade deadline. If they need a fifth starter, I think they can probably go out and sign one or have a low-cost trade for one. I think Tanner Roark, for me, answered quite a few questions today about where his head is at. I don't think they're going to add any more bullpen pieces. There are going to be some pitchers available out there that the Orioles do want to sell Zach Britton, or will at least consider it. I forget which writer it was, said that there was never any contact today between the Washington and Baltimore about Britton, which makes a heck of a lot of sense because the two teams really don't like each other because of the television deal. If Roark went out and had a bad outing, I would think that they would kind of be forced to at least entertain the possibility of getting another starting pitcher before the deadline. But I don't think that's the case now, even if Edwin Jackson doesn't pitch well Tuesday night against Anaheim, unless he pulls a Jeremy Guthrie. I don't think that's going to happen. So I would say no. I think they're done before the deadline, and any trades you're going to see are going to be in August with people who clear waivers, and it won't be for a lot of money. They added as actual payroll, it's $4.5 million this year and $12 million next year, but because you count annual average values to the contract for the luxury tax or the competitive balance tax, they blew through it. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's they're $5 or $6 million over. So they're not adding anyone. There's no Verlander coming through the door. All right.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Drew.
A guy I would keep an eye on if Edwin Jackson or Tanner Roark struggles, it's possibly Scott Feldman with Cincinnati. This is his last year on his contract, so he wouldn't be a long-term commitment. And if you want him just as a fifth starter, then maybe you go with Roark in the rotation in the playoffs. Usually only have 4 starters. Feldman has a lot of experience in the pen, so you could move him into the bullpen if you have a guy like an Oliver Perez, or maybe if Matt Albers begins to struggle, you could add him into the pen for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think Cincinnati's going to want very much for him because he's not going to cost a lot of money back into the rotation starter and for all the reasons that you mentioned. And you mentioned that in your very good article that summarizes the trade that's up on the site right now. Games in progress in the minor leagues today. Potomac and Wilmington are tied at 1 in the top of the 5th. Puckett pitching for Wilmington, Carey pitching for Potomac. Hagerstown and Lexington about to get underway. Top of the 1st, up here behind me on the hill, Auburn in Vermont, scoreless. And that one, Vermont is 16-9, by the way. Auburn is 10-15. Finals from earlier, Pawtucket beat Syracuse 7-1. Long takes a loss, 1-4, 5.29 to ERA. No homers for Syracuse today. Richmond downs Harrisburg 6-2. We ran Ricky's interview with wrong team, Ron. No, it's AA. Who'd you talk with about the Harrisburg Senators?
Mick Reinhard. He writes for the Island Chronicles, which is the Harrisburg Senators blog. So that is up today. A lot of good insight on guys like Eric Fetty, Jose Marmoleos. Talked a little bit about the K-Rod experiment that went on over there, some of their struggles. So you can check that out. And we got Kevin Brown. I did yesterday with Syracuse. Talked a lot about Suero and Stevenson that you'll find later this week, and about his broadcasting in the majors earlier this year.
Absolutely. Estevez, by the way, takes a loss. He goes to 2-1 with a 4.10 ERA. Double header, by the way, between Hagerstown and Lexington today. Lexington won the opener 2-0. Sharp with a loss, 4-7 on the year with a 3.09 ERA. And of course, don't forget, those are 7-inning games. All right, so nothing on Twitter.
Oh, we have something on Twitter.
Oh, what do we have on Twitter?
Jorge Castillo from the Washington Post tweeted that Dusty Baker does not know yet who the closer is and said could be both Madsen or Doolittle. And again, what are we doing? Pick a person.
So if you had 5:11 p.m. on the 16th of July, it's the time that one of us finally snapped on a post-game show about the bullpen, you win.
I mean, you just talked about it at the beginning of the show. Got to find some roles.
Absolutely. Oh,
got to pick a player.
Absolutely.
Just run with it.
With the big league, though, I could see why you would try them, but I would imagine that it's Doolittle that's going to get the job. I mean, that was my next question. I mean, Doolittle, in our view, is certainly the best option as closer. If you look at Madsen's numbers from last year when he was a closer, they were terrible. Certainly compared to what he was as a setup in Kansas City and what he did as a 7th-inning guy this year, right?
Yeah, and I read a quote earlier from Bob Melvin where he was saying that Ryan Madsen is the easiest reliever he's ever managed because he's ready to pitch in any situation and he's always ready to come in. So if he's comfortable pitching in any situation, I'm not sure that I would just name him the closer where he's pretty much strictly only going to pitch in safe situations.
You have a lot of flexibility with a big division lead. You might as well see what's out there. You might as well see where they fit. But to Ricky's point, I agree. I mean, there seems to be a lot of taking a pasta and throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think at some point you finally have to go through and, you can't be a bachelor forever, guys. At some point you got to commit to it and see and just stick with something that works and work with it if it doesn't work. However, this team is a 55-win team and is about to win the division by easy numbers. So it defies logic, but somehow it's all worked so far.
Can we throw this tweet out there as well? I want to throw this out to you guys. I just saw this. Joe for Sarah from MLB.com, I guess a half hour after the trade, said the Nats had substantial talks with Miami on A.J. Ramos and David Phelps, which is considering something because, again, two divisional teams. Would you rather have the Madsen Doolittle combo or the Ramos and Phelps combo?
I'd rather have the deal that they made.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay. Just want to throw that one out.
The reason being that, I mean, if Neshek had been the guy, that's the division trade I think you make. I think Miami wanted probably a higher load of prospects than what they end up giving up. I mean, I think you look at this as, yes, the Nats bullpen is immediately better. Are the problems solved? We won't know until they go out there and start to pitch. But as we've talked about throughout this entire show, they haven't lost anyone that's going to hurt them in the future.
Mike Rizzo also spoke a second ago. Pete Kurzel from Masson said Rizzo is unsure if Doolittle or Madsen will join them in Anaheim or Cincinnati, and he does think one closer will help settle the bullpen.
I would agree with the second part of that. I'd be stunned if they weren't on a red eye for tomorrow. I mean, you're essentially pitching down with 24 in the roster because Trinan isn't available. You've used did Romero pitch Friday? He's pitched the last 2 days.
I don't believe he pitched Friday.
So Romero probably is not available tomorrow. You do have Albers and you do have Ollie. And you have Strasburg tomorrow. So hopefully you can get through, but you really want they're going to be on the West Coast. You really want them to be in place for the Angels.
You also have Matt Grace tomorrow too. So I would think he's going to pitch after getting the day off today. Dusty likes him a lot. I think it's going to come down to what Strasburg does, because I can't imagine Dusty's going to throw the all A-team lineup out there tomorrow after winning the first 3 games and a getaway day. I mean, I think Bryce Harper is due for a day off, from what Dusty said earlier in the series.
Right. Yeah, that's it. He wanted to get everyone some rest, and they've done that, and the team has performed. The offense just is clicking. And again, I mean, we sound like broken records here. They're doing this without Jason Worth. They're doing it without Adam Eaton. They're doing it without Michael A. Taylor. Imagine us saying that back in April. And they're doing it without Trey Turner. When Chris Heisey and Jose Lobaton are your offensive heroes and have legitimate multi-hit games, I mean, hitting is contagious.
And the Wilmer Diffo effect. 3 more hits today, and they won again.
Again, I think it goes back to, Ricky, that, when he finally started to get some regular playing time, it came together for him. They're now, 18-4 with him as a starter? You could knock a bookie over in Vegas with that stat.
and he's not a bad 2-hitter.
No.
We talk about how this lineup is going to be somewhat different because you don't know who's going to bat second, and that's really been the big issue with this team. And fans want to put Anthony Rendon there, but you're not going to put Rendon there, and he's hitting over 400 in his last 20 in one spot. So, I mean, right now he's got to deal with it. Even Steven Drew had a good day in the 2 spot yesterday.
Without question. Absolutely without question. All right, so here's what we had go up today. I talked about the rumor that led to the trade for Sean Doolittle and Ryan Madsen. Ricky had his interview with the Harrisburg Senators reporter, and Drew, with some yeoman's work, did a piece on Joe Ross's injury and got right back out there again to do the piece on the actual trade itself. Tomorrow, we will have Ricky's doing an appreciation of Blake Trinan and what it means for him. We'll have Brian Foley's next piece on the optimal lineup for the Washington Nationals. And I will be doing something, probably a harder copy version of my reaction to this trade and what it kind of means from there on a very eventful day for the Washington Nationals. And I think we can all agree before we go that this was a very good day for the team. Hopefully this takes care of a lot of the doubt that's been creeping in about October.
The only doubt that I think stays about October is whether or not you could beat that team on the other coast. Because the team on the other coast, is, while you beat them 2 out of 3, is starting to look elite. But I think you're monitoring right now what Chicago's doing, and you're monitoring if Milwaukee gets Sonny Gray. Because those are the 2 teams right now you would think the Nationals are going to play in the first round.
If the Dodgers keep on their current pace, it really doesn't matter what the Nationals do. At the end of the day, you just tip your hat and say, congratulations, you were the better team.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still, it's the middle of July, and stranger things, it's baseball. You get called for giving an error because you think you've rung up the strikeout, and you throw the third around the infield. You never know when stuff like that's going to happen. Drew, your impressions of how this kind of affects everything?
Well, I thought today was a great day for the Nationals. We had Tanner Roark figuring things out a bit. And then the trade, you get the 2 impact relievers. Hopefully, like you said, everyone will kind of fit into roles now. And so the bullpen will start to figure things out. And so I thought overall it was a great day for the team.
Yeah, I will miss trying, but you got to take chances like that. All right. So Drew will be with you tomorrow for tomorrow's game. And if anything happens during the game that requires like a trade, then I'll be there to back him up to get some stuff up. So for all of us at District on Deck, give this video a like and subscribe on YouTube, as a lot of you already have. Follow us on Twitter. We live tweet every game. Give us a like on Facebook. You can read everything there, along with some cute little videos and stuff like that. And, of course, DistrictOnDeck.com is the place to go for everything about the Washington Nationals. For my good friends Drew and Ricky and the rest of the staff at District on Deck, I'm Ron Juckett. Have a very good Sunday afternoon.